Welcome back to the show, guys. Today is a very, very special episode. I know I say that every single week, but today it truly is. Because today, August 4th, is the 133rd anniversary of the Lizzie Borden tragedy that happened, 133 years ago. August 4th, and today we're just going to dive on into the case. We're going to dive beyond the case and more so what happened in the courthouse and more so what happened with the funerals and the wounds and really what happened to the victims of this case. And of course, with me, I had to bring in Mr. Rich Little. Rich,
Here I
how
am
are you?
again.
I appreciate you coming by.
Okay, Seth, and today's 133rd anniversary of the what was called the Fall River tragedy.
Yep.
And today we're going to talk about what happened right after the discovery of Mr. and Mrs. Borden.
Absolutely.
Both of whom was slain it was a Thursday. It's a Monday this year, but it was a Thursday back in 1892. And we're going to talk about two autopsies and a funeral.
Sure thing.
And all this time that you and I have been talking, we have done several Lizzie Borden shows, and primarily what we talked about was Lizzie Borden.
Yes.
And we really didn't talk about the victims in this, and that often happens in many cases.
Would you like to introduce who we have behind us?
Sure. Behind us today, we have on, I guess that would be your left, the viewer's left, Mr. Andrew Borden, Andrew J. Borden, middle name?
Jackson. Ooh.
And his second wife is Abby Borden on the right. He was almost 70 years old on the day that he was slain, and she was in her early 60s, 63. And the original Mrs. Borden, the mother of Emma and the mother of Lizzie. And
At the date of the tragedy, how old were the daughters?
Lizzie was 32, and Emma was about 9 years older.
And then they had a late middle child as well.
And then they had another child in between them who had passed away. And we talked about that in episode number 2 about the middle child.
Sure.
And how she passed away she was almost 2 years old.
Right.
That was before Lizzie was born.
Right.
So hence the difference in ages between Emma and Lizzie. There was one sister in the middle who tragically passed away of a childhood disease, and that was not uncommon back in the 1880s and, 1870s.
So we've done 2 in-depth, very detailed episodes on the case itself.
Right.
And if you're looking for case background, I highly recommend that you watch those videos. They will be linked in the description below, and you can see them pop up right here. But today we're going to, like I was talking about earlier, we're going to dive into the case, or to the courtroom. We're going to dive into the wounds and the autopsies and the funeral and what happened after the tragedy.
Yeah, and we probably should warn our viewers today that what we're going to show you is going to be graphic.
There'll be drawings. They won't be actual.
Well, there's going to be a couple of graphic pictures.
Sure.
Taken at the day of the crime.
Okay.
By the photographer that was hired by the medical examiner to take photographs of the crime scene. And that was one of the earliest incidents where photography was used. Pictures were taken at the crime scene, and those were used in the courtroom at the trial.
Sure.
Not at the inquest, but probably at the grand jury, and definitely in the trial of Lizzie in June of 1893.
Sure.
So the tragedy has occurred somewhere between 9 a.m. and 11. Both of these people that we see behind us were brutally attacked and brutally murdered.
And they were dead on scene. They were
dead on the scene. we're going to show how it was determined that they were not killed at the same time.
Sure.
In fact, it was a sizable amount of time, probably in the area of an hour and a half, between murder number 1, which is Mrs. Borden, and victim number 2, which was Mr. Borden. It's about an hour and a half. And we'll get into how they determined that time.
And this is all on the same property. This
Right.
isn't scattered throughout New Bedford. This is all within the same
Off
house.
Fall River.
Oh, Fall River. I'm sorry. In the house.
Right. It was in the same house. It was in broad daylight, early morning. So the bodies have been discovered. Mrs. Borden was the second one discovered. Mr. Borden was discovered by who? Lizzie.
Yes.
Came back into the house from the barn. She had pears that she had taken from the, they had a pear tree that was out back, and she had taken pears from the pear tree, brought them in, put them in the sink in the pantry area, washed them, and then discovered, as she entered the sitting room from the kitchen, she discovered her father brutally wounded, as she thought, on the couch where he was sitting when she had left approximately 25 minutes earlier. When she left the house to go out back, to go into the barn, she was looking for something in the loft.
Now,
And-
about that, I'm sorry. I read the comments from the first 2 videos. I kind of did a quick just once over of the comments, and there was a lot of confusion about the slippers or the shoes that were on Mr. Borden's feet. It said that he didn't wear the shoes in the house, and Lizzie put them on there. But then I also saw a theory that the photographer put the shoes on Mr. Borden to make it more appealing, I guess, photo-wise.
Well, Lizzie claimed in all of her testimony, and when I say testimony, in her testimony before the inquest and her testimony before the preliminary hearing, that she had asked her father if he wanted to lay down. This is after he had just gone downtown, walked to several of his businesses, visited the bank where he was a director, and had come home at approximately 10:30 in the morning. He had left at about 9 a.m., so he had been gone for an hour and a half, returned home, had gone to the post office, brought the mail home, and then decided he was going to sit or lay down on the sitting room couch and relax a little bit before dinner was served, or lunch as we call it.
Sure.
But the midday meal. Lizzie said she removed his slippers, asked him if he wanted his slippers removed, and removed his slippers so he would be more comfortable and could put his feet up onto the couch. The photographs that were taken by the photographer that was hired show Mr. Borden with his shoes on.
Sure.
And there's a controversy there. Is she lying? If she lied about taking his shoes off, was she lying about other things that they were asking her? And the theory is that nobody would want to be taken in a respectable photograph, dead or alive, with their shoes off,
Right.
showing their socks. That would sort of be improper in the Victorian age.
Sure.
So the theory is, of those people who have studied this case, is that the photographer slipped them back on before he took the picture.
Nothing like his head is just caved open and he's just laying there. But so why don't we get into what the crime scene, I guess, looked like, and then we can kind of go into some actual diagrams.
Okay, so I sent you the photograph of what Mr. Borden looked like as he was sitting on the sofa, and how Mrs. Borden looked as she was almost looked like she was praying on the upper the guest room on the second floor on the floor of the guest room. The guest room, by the way, where Uncle John Morse spent the previous night, because he did not live at that address. He came to visit Mr. Borden. They were talking business, and he stayed over.
Sure.
So the first person to arrive was a police officer, the booking officer that was sent down from the police station. And when he got there, he knocked at the door. He didn't just barge right in. He knocked at the door. And guess who came to the door? Well, you thought it might have been Lizzie, or it might have been Bridget.
I would say it's John. Who else left?
No, it was actually Dr. Bowen.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Bowen had come back, and we talked about all that story about Dr. Bowen and John Morse being at the same location at approximately the same time up on Wybosset Street, which is a little bit of a distance from 2nd Street, from the crime scene. And they were both there, John Morse visiting relatives, Dr. Bowen attending to a sick teenager.
Sure.
And they happened to be there about the same time. There's no indication that they saw each other. Maybe one was leaving as the other one was arriving. However, when the first police officer arrived upon the scene, the first thing he did is check his clock. It was approximately 11:25. Who answered the door? Dr. Bowen. So Dr. Bowen was not at Wybosset at 11:25. He had to leave Wybosset much earlier than that in a buggy, horse-drawn buggy, to come back home.
Right.
And it was approximately a mile and a quarter between those two places, but it took some time to do that. And here we are. We have two bodies, and Dr. Bowen has looked at Mr. Borden and determined that he is deceased. They get a sheet to cover him up, and the police arrive, and by noontime, they had some conclusions. The police who were investigating had some conclusions who they thought might be responsible.
Sure.
And they narrowed it down from about 100 quickly down to 2 and then 1.
Sure.
And they suspected everybody.
Right.
Anybody who was different, anybody who had a problem, anybody who had a drinking issue, anybody who had a violence issue, anybody who was foreign.
Now, was Fall River like a hot for immigration? Like a hot spot for immigration at that time?
And one of the reasons was because they had so many mills there. In 1892, there were about 110 mills that made fabric, mostly fabric. There were other industry as well associated with the fabric industry, and there were lots of people looking for jobs. And in fact, the Fall River population back then is similar to what it is today, somewhere between 90 and 100,000 people. Fall River was a big city in 1892.
Right.
Had a police force of 125 people.
That's a pretty large police force, considering Rockland, I'm assuming, has 30 or so staff members.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm not a police officer, but I'm just through observation.
Right. So they had 125 police officers and a lot of people and a lot of suspects. Anybody who came back from the Civil War who had a drinking problem was a suspect.
Because undiagnosed PTSD at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anybody who came back from the Civil War who had a violence problem.
Sure.
They were all suspects.
Sure.
But soon that was narrowed down because this was in broad daylight now. And unfortunately, when they narrowed it down and said that they, amongst themselves, the police officers, that they thought that Lizzie probably was involved because she was there.
Right.
There were only 2 people. There were 4 people in the house, 2 of them deceased. And those were Bridget Sullivan, the domestic servant, and Lizzie
Right.
Lizzie's sister Emma was away in Fairhaven, visiting friends. She'd been there for days, and she quickly was eliminated as a possible suspect.
Sure.
Any other possible suspects, and of course, Bridget Sullivan would have been a suspect because she was there. And
But she was washing windows, and she
Yes.
sort of had an alibi.
sort of had an alibi. And so did Lizzie.
Right.
Sort of had an alibi. And so did Uncle John Morse.
Right.
Sort of had an alibi. I've had some of our comments coming in and tell me the way they understand it, Uncle John had an ironclad alibi.
Right.
Not so much.
And if you guys have a theory about what happens, please be sure to comment it down below. And if you guys are getting value from this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And yeah, John Morse.
Yes. So, and we went all through that in episode
Sure.
number 2, that he and Dr. Bowen couldn't be at the same place at the same time when Dr. Bowen was back at the Borden home at 25 past 12. So the first thing they decide to do is we gotta take a preliminary look at what happened. And the person to do that was the medical examiner of Bristol County, a guy by the name of Dolan. And he being the medical examiner, he was also a doctor. And he decided that he needed other doctors. And it was almost like, wow, I want to get in on this.
Right.
Every doctor who was
Well, this was
available,
a huge case.
it was a huge case.
Because Mr. Borden was a respected businessman, a respected person in the community, a community member. Did he sit on specific boards? And
He was on the board of directors for banks. He was on the board of directors for mills. He had his own properties that he both retail and office rental.
Sure.
The Borden block.
Yeah.
The A.J. Borden block is on the historical register. It's still down there in Fall River.
So everybody wanted to be a part of this for their own form of publicity.
Exactly. So there were 10 doctors involved in the initial examination of Mr. Borden and Mrs. Borden.
Sure.
Mr. Borden was examined in the sitting room in which he was slain. Mrs. Borden was moved from the second floor guest bedroom downstairs to the dining room.
Sure.
And that's where this initial, what they call an initial autopsy, actually it was an examination. So let me give you names of the doctors that were there, in addition to the medical examiner. There were, interestingly enough, Dr. William Learned, who was president of the Fall River Medical Society. Here's an interesting one. John Coughlin, mayor of Fall River,
Now, why was he there?
because he was a doctor
Okay. In what?
in medicine.
Okay.
He was a medical doctor, got elected to be a mayor. You're going to find Dr. Coughlin, you're going to find his name in a lot of Lizzie stories and books, and his name keeps coming up.
Well, he just had the publicity.
Yes.
And the politics.
And publicity is good, especially when you're a politician.
Sure.
Okay, they had Dr. Albert Diedrich, Dr. John Leary, Dr. Thomas Gunning, Dr. Emmanuel Dutra, and Dr. Anson Peckham. I tried to find out if he was related to a Dr. Peckham from Abington, but I came up empty on that.
Alrighty.
Dr. Seabury Bowen. We've talked about Dr. Bowen before.
Right.
Dr. Seabury Bowen. And the last doctor was Dr. Turlett, who went by the initials Dr. J.Q.A. Turlett. So we got 10 doctors and 2 bodies. So we divide them up. We put 5 doctors in one room, 5 doctors in the other room. and they're going to examine the body to see what caused the death. Well, it's pretty obvious what caused the death. And somebody mentioned, you know what? These people were brutally massacred. I wonder if they were semi-conscious or drugged before they were murdered with a bladed instrument.
Sure.
This is the first thing we hear about poison. Everybody talks about Eli Bentz, the guy who worked in the pharmacist, who says he claimed that he sold, or he was asked to sell prussic acid to Lizzie on the day before the murders.
And Lizzie denied these accusations.
Well, as it turned out, so did the court. And although he was seated at the trial, he was not allowed to testify because she had been charged with the murder of her father and stepmother by use of a sharp instrument. There was no indication that poison was involved. Whether she tried to buy it or didn't try to buy it. And we went through that story about Eli Bentz and how he said he didn't know who it was, but he thinks he could recognize her. And then they took him in. He did recognize her. And as it went from inquest to preliminary hearing to grand jury to trial, he became more and more familiar with Lizzie Borden.
Oh, I'm sure.
And at the end, he had known her from a previous store 10 years ago where he worked. And the next thing you know, you had other pharmacists all over Fall River saying, I think she was in my place trying to buy prussic acid.
Again,
everybody
publicity.
using it for publicity.
Right.
So all these doctors, one of them who said, gee, I wonder if they were poisoned, the medical examiner said, you know what, that's a plausible idea. We're going to remove the stomachs from both of these individuals. And they did by making an incision from here down past the navel. And they removed the stomachs, tied them off, put them in glass jars, sealed them, and then sent them off to a Dr. Edward Wood, a professor at Harvard University. He's a professor of chemistry. And
what a science project.
Yes, exactly. And why did they send them in?
Why?
To test for poison.
Right.
Okay, so here's the poison thought that gets put into all of these doctors' names. And it didn't take very long where people were talking on the outside about, gee, maybe they were poisoned.
Right. I mean, it's not a bad train of thought.
No, it's a pretty good theory.
Knock them out first and
Right.
then do your assault.
Right.
It's not a good plan, but it makes sense. But yeah.
Well, if you wanted to cover up the people who were poisoned,
right.
because that would end if these people are brutally murdered, they're probably not going to check them for poison, except somebody said, well, maybe they were unconscious when they were murdered with the whatever the implement was.
Right.
And we're sure that it wasn't an axe, although the poem mentions 40 whacks with an axe. It certainly wasn't an axe because an axe is a long-handled, and you got to have room to swing. And these wounds, and I'm going to show you the wounds, were not done with an axe.
Right.
Because you know how hard it is swinging an axe to hit the same place twice.
Exactly.
Right.
And plus, I've seen the damage on the skull itself, and I'm imagining the driving power of that blade and the weight of it, and
Right.
you get all that torque. I can't imagine that that's all the damage it caused. I would imagine that it would do more through the pictures that I've seen.
Right.
Like just with all that snap, I guess.
So they examined these two bodies, removed the stomachs, sent them to Bicoria. That means they hired somebody to take them into Harvard University in Cambridge, most probably by train. So they hired somebody to be responsible, a courier. So he took these 2 containers, glass, sealed with wax, and boxed, and took them into Harvard University to be examined for poison. At the time, and they were tested for poison, and it came up negative in both cases. But what was determined was the contents of the stomachs,
Right.
which consisted of the morning breakfast, which was consumed somewhere around 7 o'clock in the morning. And what the professor, Dr. Wood, discovered was that the contents had different times of digestion.
Sure.
Which indicated to him that one of these people was slain before the other.
Right.
Because there was markable difference in the digestion of what the morning breakfast was. And we think it was not mutton stew, as let's forget about the mutton.
What did they have for breakfast?
Johnny cakes was a common thing that they had, similar to like pancakes. And they might have some fruit and coffee.
Yeah.
And
Speaking of coffee, I'm on my second glass right here.
and what are you drinking today?
Well, I'm drinking my own brands. Coffee by Seth, the official sponsor of the show. Today I'm drinking Mexican chocolate.
Ooh, how is that?
It's pretty good. And then I got whiskey barrel aged. 2 new flavors live on the website, coffeebyseth.com. Link will be in the description below. I am on my second coffee of the morning right now. I don't recommend that unless you are a professional like me. Professional coffee drinker.
Right.
Yes. You can also tune in for my coffee hours. I usually go live Saturday or Sunday nights if I got something to talk about. I just did The Great Gatsby, a character analysis, and a deep dive on the book itself. I've also done Dracula, 2 episodes on Dracula. But back to the digestion.
Okay, so Dr. Wood says that there is no poison, but he can tell that these people died approximately between an hour and an hour and a half. I'm sorry, an hour and a half and 2 hours between the 2 murders.
Right.
So that's a significant clue to this whole thing. One of these people were slain at just after 9 o'clock in the morning, and the other one was slain just before 11 o'clock on the same morning. So somewhere between an hour and a half and an hour and 45 minutes difference between the two. And they could tell that by the digestion rates. So at about 5:30 in the afternoon, the pictures initially were taken by the photographer before 3 o'clock, and a guy by the name of James Walsh was hired by the medical examiner to take the pictures. He took the pictures of which we have and you can show, Andrew Borden's body as it sat on the sofa in the sitting room. And he took pictures of Abby Borden's body in the guest bedroom, both before and after she was turned over, so you could see the wounds. We're only going to be showing the one that was taken before. She was in between a bed and a dresser, and you can see that in the picture that we're going to put into this episode.
Horrifying to look at.
And they also moved the bed. The police department moved the bed so they could get a side shot. So the side shot that you see in other publications was done after they moved the bed.
Sure.
And after he got through taking his pictures of the bedroom, of the sitting room, of the 2 bodies where they lay, of the blood spatter on the wall in the sitting room, then the body of Mrs. Borden was brought downstairs, assumably on a stretcher, and brought to the dining room where the doctors, the list of doctors that I gave you, removed the stomachs and sent them off for dispatch. And at about 5:30, they had finished up, and they released the body to a funeral director by the name of James Winwood. Now, Winwood claims that he did the embalming and all of that on these people. He processed and prepared the bodies for the wake. which was held on the following day, on Friday. Actually, he did not. He was the guy who ran the funeral parlor, of a funeral business, not funeral parlor, funeral business. And he actually had a guy by the name of Renwick, James Renwick, who was actually did the embalming to prepare the bodies. Now, the bodies were placed in caskets. The caskets were placed in the, I believe, dining area, and they were open caskets, believe it or not.
Wow.
They had displayed the two bodies. They were, my understanding is the two caskets were almost head to head, and which allowed them to turn Mr. Borden's head slightly to the left, show it so what was visible to the people who are viewing at the wake would be just the side of his face that was not all bashed in.
Right.
And the same with Abby Borden. Interestingly enough, the wounds are so similar, and one is on the left side of Mr. Borden's as he would look at it. When we say left side, it's as the person's left side.
Sure.
Not as we look at it.
They're right.
So
yeah.
the left side, of Mr. Borden's would be this area in here.
Okay.
Okay, and in Abby's, it would be this side over here, the right side.
Sure.
So those two were corresponding wounds, but on opposite sides.
That was pretty smooth with the light. I will say that was pretty slick.
Okay. So here we are, and now the funeral director gets them into, does what he has to do. They were on body boards. You hear rumors that Mrs. Borden, the autopsy removing the stomach was done on the dining room table. That's not true. It was done on like an undertaker's body board. And now they prepare for the wake, and the wake was on the Friday. It was at home. Have you ever been to an at-home wake?
No, and I do work part-time at a funeral home.
Yeah, I have been to one in my life. A colleague, his dad passed away, and it was held at a private home.
You know, what's funny is I was just talking with a coworker about doing a at-home service, and I told her, I said, if I end up dying anytime soon, she's in charge of the at-home service. I think that would be kind of interesting. You know,
this would be nice here. You've got a nice spot for it.
Yeah, this is a very roomy area. It's if you guys check my social media, you can check YouTube Shorts, TikTok, or Instagram. I just posted a behind the scenes setup so you can see from the other side over where the cameras are. You can kind of see this way of what the whole room looks like. So if you guys are interested, check it out. Shoot me a follow. I'd appreciate it. If you guys got questions, feel free to ask them.
Okay, so what was in Mr. Borden's pocket at the time of his death?
I was reading the notes. I saw a watch, $1.50 and change.
Yep. Some keys.
Some keys, yep.
Pocket knife. A pocket knife.
Yep.
Small wallet containing $66 in cash. A railroad ticket stub. Guess how much? So $66.50 he had.
Sure.
Between the change and the folding bills.
Huh.
Guess what that would be worth in today's dollars?
Well, I can see the answer right here.
Okay, let's give him the answer.
Drop them down below. You guys got 5, 4, 3, 2. Put your calculators away. $2,328.75 in 2025 currency.
Okay, so he was carrying a lot of money.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, he was carrying a lot of money. I don't go around with $66 in my pocket now. Nobody does. We don't do money anymore.
No, only if I'm going for a specific reason.
Right.
But yeah.
So we have that list of things that were in his pocket. They said that Mr. Borden was a teetotaler, did not drink, did not smoke. Yet the rumor is that they found a small can of chewing tobacco in his pocket, which would not have been unusual for the time.
Sure.
Something like, ground up snuff, Copenhagen or something like that.
Right.
Is that even available anymore? Do they
I
still
don't know. I smoke cigars, but I don't do chewing tobacco.
So, then the next day is the funeral. That's Saturday,
August 6th.
August 6th, and only by invite only.
Okay.
So the wake on Tuesday, Friday, and the funeral on Saturday were by appointment only.
Okay.
So, what did Lizzie and Emma wear? They wore, according to the newspapers of the time, they wore mourning dress, not mourning, M-O-U-R. And that consisted of a dark black dress that went down to almost down to the ground, black gloves, hat, black hat. It was very, very typical of a Victorian funeral. It was noted that, and often wore a veil, a dark veil. It was noted that Lizzie did not wear a veil.
Any particular reason? And how was that
Probably because
perceived?
she didn't want to, but it was put in the paper almost as,
Like a diss to her?
well, yeah, she was disrespecting her parents by not wearing a veil. And
This is August we're talking about. It can be hot.
yes, it can be. And so, but they put that down that, and it was like at the end of the Victorian time, and veils were not necessarily always worn
Right.
in a mourning type situation. They were prior to that, earlier in the Victorian age. It was often that way.
Carolyn, you're going to wear a veil. You're going to wear a veil. My girlfriend's my director, for those of you who don't know. She's going to wear a veil when I go.
So, here we are, have the funeral, the pallbearers.
Okay.
The pallbearers for Andrew included a guy by the name of John Boone, a businessman, Andrew J. Borden, another Andrew J. Borden, same name, and he was merchant, head of the merchant manufacturing company. Jerome C. Borden, a cousin. Richard A. Borden, another relative, prominent businessman, owned the Richard Borden block in downtown Fall River. Another businessman by the name of George Dean. Andrew Hart, who was treasurer of the Union Savings Bank. And Mr. James Osborne, who was a member of the Central Congregational Church, which is where Mr. and Mrs. Borden attended services.
Sure.
Mrs. Borden, the pallbearers of Mrs. Borden included Frank Almy. Now, he was related to the Almy who used to be in business with Mr. Borden when they had the furniture business, Borden and Almy. John Boone, Henry Buffington, who Buffington was a big name in Fall River at the time, former mayor of Fall River. Simeon Chase, who was a court officer, I believe, clerk of court. James Eddy, and a gentleman by the name of J. Henry Wells. So now the funeral starts.
Okay.
And I have a map, and you're going to have the map to be able to show it.
Sure.
And they left the Borden residence because that's where the funeral was.
So you're going to draw out the...
So I'm going to draw out the map. The funeral started at the Borden house and went north on 2nd Street, just a little bit, and turned left on Borden Street, interestingly enough, instead of taking the easy way and connecting onto Rock Street to get to Oak Grove Cemetery. It turned a left onto Borden and then a right on to Main Street.
Sure.
So now we're downtown Fall River.
Okay.
Saturday, noontime. You've got probably 8 to 10 horse-drawn wagons. 2 of them are hearses. Then the family. Then the invited guests. And upwards of 200 people walking in the street behind this entourage. And it comes up Main Street, right downtown right downtown Fall River, past Mr. Borden's block,
Sure.
past the bank, which he was the on the board of directors, past another bank where he was a member of the board of directors, and goes all the way down Main Street until he gets to Cherry Street. So turns right on Cherry, left on Rock. Now Rock Street is a big long street in Fall River that parallels Main Street. And then one block, a right on to Prospect Street. And at the end, I'm showing an arrow, and that is where Oak Grove Cemetery is located.
Sure.
I'm going to mark that with a OG so you can see that. And if we want, let's see if we can put that up.
Yeah. If it's visible, fantastic. If not, then I can, layer something on top.
So it was a big deal. Like we talked before, Seth.
I mean, 200 people following is a pretty big deal, you know?
And
I'd be honored.
all along the parade route, there was a crowd,
Wow.
just like a parade,
Wow.
right down Main Street, 1.5 miles from the Borden house to Oak Grove Cemetery.
Sure.
So it was a big deal. And as was the custom of the day, everybody remained in their carriage, except for two ministers, Dr. Adams and Dr. Buck, Reverend Buck, I'm sorry, and Uncle John. And they went to the gravesite and paid their last respects, came back to the carriages, and the carriages departed.
Now, why did John Morse go to the grave?
I do not know.
Do you have a theory?
I do not.
I know it's kind of hard to speculate.
It's hard to speculate why he would be the only one that went to the gravesite. It was customary not to go to the grave to actually watch the descent of the caskets into the ground. That was the Victorian age. You did not witness that.
Sure.
As we do today, we gather around the perimeter of the gravesite and normally don't watch the casket go into the ground. Normally, what's accepted practice today is everybody disperses, and then the people with the funeral home and the cemetery crew lower the body into the ground.
Yeah, I know. I'm not, when I'm working a funeral, I am not, or we're supposed to make sure that the casket enters the grave properly. Right. And we're supposed to oversee it as a witness and assurance that everything is being cared for as it should be. And it's a very it's a protocol. Yeah, it's protocol, and it's I feel like it's kind of noble to make sure everything's there. I don't mind doing it.
The parties disperse. The crowd who'd been following dispersed. The carriages dispersed, and were unknown to the Borden family and to Lizzie and to her sister and to Uncle John. The bodies were not interned into the ground. Right. They were moved from that site, and the graves were all dug, mind you, and they were moved to what was called a holding vault. And many cemeteries around here have holding vaults. Sure. And the reason they have holding vaults is because, especially years ago, when we used to have some really tough winters, the ground would get frozen. And you'd have to get a jackhammer to try to get into the ground to bury a casket. So what they would often do is put a casket into a holding vault, which was often built into the side of a hill because it would be cooler and protected, and all you had on it was a door which was chained and bolted. And then when the weather got to be suitable for burial, so you could dig a hole in the ground, because you got to remember, back in 1892, graves are dug by hand.
Right. There's no excavation equipment.
Right. There wasn't any excavation equipment as there is today. So any bodies that were needed to be buried before, while the ground was frozen, had to be postponed until the ground thawed out. And sometimes that was springtime, sometimes, early March.
But they didn't go there for that reason. It's August. They went there.
They went there because the medical examiner said they wanted an official autopsy done.
Sure.
So he could take a look at the wounds. That was not looked at that initial examination at the Borden home on the day of the murders. All they did really that day was remove the stomachs and sent them to Boston for testing.
Right.
And they were testing for poison. And so that brings us to the second autopsy.
Yep.
The big autopsy.
If you guys are getting value out of this, please make sure to comment, like, subscribe, share. I'm always doing different things. I'm doing different live streams, watch parties. So if you guys are interested in the live stuff and you want to talk to me, ask me questions, feel free to go ahead and do that. If I have an opinion on it, I'll be absolutely able to, give that to you guys. And if I don't, I'll make an opinion. And sometimes that gets me in trouble.
Yes.
But, okay,
as it did with the chamber pot.
Exactly.
I sent you a set of pictures which showed Abby's body as it was found on the bedroom floor. The back of her head look like after they removed the hair to show you where the wounds were. And there's another picture which shows a braid of hair. And this was rumored that it was found at her body site. That's not true. This was removed during that initial examination when they removed the stomachs. They removed that braid of hair, cut it off. It was all matted, had a lot of blood on it because she was struck just below where the skull attaches to the neck. And we're going to show that when we show these gruesome autopsy things that we're going to do.
Sure.
So, and then I gave you the two photographs of Mr. Borden, one where he is on the couch. Okay, so next is the official autopsy.
Sure.
And the official autopsy was done by 3 doctors. Again, the medical examiner and Dr. Dolan, assisted by Dr. F.W. Draper, and the witnesses for all of this, because it was an official autopsy that was going to be entered into court record. Dr. Draper was the official, one of the official witnesses, and a gentleman by the name of John Leary of Fall River was the other witness, and the clerk who wrote all of these things down, as we're going to read them off today, was a guy by the name of D.E. Cohn, and he was from Fall River. Time of autopsy was 11:15 in the morning. The date was August 11th, 1 week after the death.
Sure.
So we have 2 bodies who have been in a vault in August
With no
refrigeration.
Yep, nothing.
And no preservation. And so the first one they did was Mr. Borden.
Sure.
He was approximately 70 years of age, 5'11", and we can read that. No stiffness of death on account of decomposition, which was far advanced. As you would imagine, he'd been dead for a week, far advanced. They did notice that he had an integral hernia on the right side. That would be a hernia that's in the groin area. This is not caused from the actions of him being killed. So something abdomen had already been opened. Well, we know that they did that to remove the stomachs a week earlier. He had artificial teeth in the upper jaw. It kind of tells you something because People who did not have a lot of money usually had teeth yanked out. If you had a tooth problem, you had it yanked.
Right.
He had artificial teeth, as did his wife as well.
Maybe he's walking around with $3,000 in his pocket.
Right. No marks of violence on the body. So that's kind of interesting. All indications, all injuries on both of these victims was in the head.
Sure.
He had some incised wounds and one contused wound. Well, you may say, what the heck is an incised wound? An incised wound is something with a sharp edge. A contused wound is blunt trauma impact.
Sure.
So he was either, if he was hit with something, he was either hit with two different things, or he was hit something that had a sharp edge on one side and a blunt side on the other.
Right. Right.
Something like a hatchet,
Right.
or maybe a butcher's axe,
Sure.
which is a term for a tool that a butcher used. Okay, so you're going to read off.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm going to bring Andrews up here.
Alrighty. So we got.
We're going to, if Caroline can see that, this is an autopsy diagram that an autopsy physician would use, medical examiner would use during an official autopsy. You can get any part of the body or a whole torso to show wounds on it, but because all of our wounds are going to be in the head, we didn't need to do any more than that. So
Sure. I'll read them along.
if you would,
So we got one incised wound that's 4 inches long, beginning at the lower border of the left nasal bone and reaching to the lower edge of the lower jaw, cutting through the nose, the upper lip, the lower lip, and slightly into bone of the upper and lower jaw. If you want to show your camera over here, that might work a little bit better.
let me.
Let me know how my reading is, guys. Can I do audiobooks? Something that I've thought about, but I'm not sure if I've
Okay,
got
so
a voice for radio.
can everybody see the? I'll center it a little bit. The first wound that Seth told us about
Is the red outline.
is a red outline.
The second wound was, it began at the internal angle of the eye and extended to 1 3/8 inches of the lower edge of the jaw, beginning 4 1/2 inches in length, cutting through the tissues and into the bone.
Okay, number 3.
Number 3 began at the lower border of the lower eyelid, cutting through the tissues and into the cheekbone, 2 inches long and 1 3/8 inches deep. So there we go. So that's strike 3. Strike 4
Yes.
began 2 inches above the upper
Yes.
eyelid, 1/2 inch external to wound. Number 3, downward and outward through the middle of the left eyebrow, through
Yes.
the eyeball, cutting into it completely in halves and excising, whatever. A piece of skull, 1.5 inches in length and 1/2 inch in width, length of 4 1/2 inches.
Okay. Notice that those first. Now these are not necessarily in the order that they occurred.
They're just how they logged
This
them.
is how they logged them.
Sure.
Okay.
Number 5, began on the level of the same wound, superficial scalp, wound downward and outward 2 inches long.
Yep.
6, parallel with this 1/4 inch long, downward and outward.
Yep.
7, began 1/2 inch below number 5 and 3 inches in length, downward and outward, penetrating cavity of skull.
Yep.
On top of skull was transverse fracture 4 1/2 inch long.
Okay.
Began directly above number 7 and 1 inch in length, downward and outward.
Got it.
9, directly next to number 8, beginning at the ear and extending 4 inches long, 2 inches in width, crushing the bone and carrying the bone into the brain and crushing from without it
Now, that was the contused. We said there was one contused wound. All the rest were incised. In other words, they were done with a sharp edge up until this last one that we just showed, number 8, which is this long one that goes like that. That was done with the blunt edge of a instrument, probably the same instrument.
I'm assuming the guy just spun it around. There was probably something
Turned it
on
in
there.
his hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 10, directly behind this and above it, and running downwards back 2 inches long, superficially.
Well, superficial wound is something that just it grazed the skin and did not penetrate the vein. So
Sure.
this is what Andrew's head on the left side looked like.
Horrible.
I'm going to show you what the back looked like.
You could probably show your camera. It might work better.
Okay. The back, looking from the back, didn't look all that serious because all of the
damage
major
was in the
damage.
front.
And notice that there's 2 sets of things going on. These are kind of parallel, and these here are parallel. And that's about it. And so this was very important, and they noted all of this. And they wrote down all of those things in that particular thing. There were 10 wounds, and so he was struck 10 different times, not 41 as in the poem. And after they got through doing that, they removed Mr. Borden's head.
Yeah.
And then closed the casket, and the 2 bodies of his body was ready to be buried.
Okay.
Now we're going to go on to the next set of
wounds for Abby.
Yeah. Let me give you this one, Seth. I'm going to. It didn't do. This is a frontal view.
Sure.
I'm going to quickly do those.
Sure. And this will show why they positioned the caskets in such a way so that the I guess the assault isn't as visible.
This is what Mr. Borden's face looked like.
Wow.
At the time of the autopsy. So you can compare that to his photograph up there. And what that produced was, and you may say, why did they take the heads? Well, they took the heads because Dr. Dolan took the heads home, put them on the kitchen stove, and boiled them.
Oh, my God.
To boil all of the skin, muscle, any tissue, brain tissue, any liquid, blood, coagulated blood, to boil all that away because they use the skulls as evidence when they had the trial.
Physical skulls or replicas?
No, physical.
Wow.
And here's what the skull looked like.
Wow.
And you can start to see that these are the first ones that we talked about. And then, I'm not saying that occurred first. I'm saying that's what they noted in the autopsy.
Right.
Was these first and then those. This one right here with the blunt side of the instrument might have been the first blow.
You think so?
Well, that would have incapacitated the individual completely. And in fact, may have killed them instantly.
Yeah.
Because it penetrated. Whereas these, while they did penetrate, they didn't necessarily penetrate the brain.
Right.
Where this one did.
Yeah. That's horrible.
So that's what these look like. It's kind of gruesome.
So we're going to move on to Abby.
Yes.
Alrighty. Do you want me to reread the...
Yeah, let me get her set to you.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
There's-
And all of this info is in the book Cold Case to Case Closed, a book that Rich actually wrote with a co-author. I forget her name, but she's She's up in Canada. It's
Yeah,
right here.
Beverly,
Beverly.
Falstead.
Yep, Beverly. You can buy the book. All the links will be in the description below. This is a detailed account of the case and even has points of view from, or I guess, written accounts of Lizzie's point of view that Beverly did a fantastic job at narrating.
Yes.
So if you guys want to check it out, you can check it out in the description below.
We're going to do a special. I'm going to be signing a bunch of those today. And I will be dating them today, 133rd anniversary. So if anybody wants to buy a book in the next this week, they're all going to be signed today with today's date and with my signature. If you'd like them inscribed to somebody, that process is easier through eBay because eBay has a spot right on their auto blank where who you'd like it inscribed to. I can make it out to anybody that you'd like. Amazon is a little bit different. The price is the same no matter which format you buy these, either at Amazon or at eBay. But the eBay is the one if you want to get the inscribed one.
This is an excellent Christmas gift, and really what's fascinating about this particular book is that it has the timeline down. So if you're having a hard time following the timeline, because it can get very confusing with all the different players involved, you can always go back to the end of the book and reference the timeline to keep yourself on track. And it's inscribed by the author.
It is, and
does a great job.
The timeline is to show where everybody was in relationship to the crime scene
Absolutely.
and to each other.
Sure.
So you start to come up with an idea yourself of how things went down that day.
Right.
Where Bridget Sullivan said she was the first one up, and Uncle John said he was the second one up, and they're both on the first floor, and they're there for over an hour and 15 minutes. It's only 4 rooms, and they never see each other.
Right.
Kind of strange.
Yeah, it starts to make the wheels start to spin
Yes.
a little bit and make you
And
think.
then Mrs. Borden arrived, and Bridget was preparing breakfast, and then Mr. Borden was so we have those 4 people that are there. Lizzie is nowhere in the picture. Lizzie didn't get up until about 9 o'clock that morning.
Sure.
Mr. Borden and supposedly John Morse, Uncle John Morse, had both left the premises before Lizzie even got up. Okay, so let's go on to Abby Borden.
Sure.
And we're going to have to do this a little bit quicker because there's a lot more.
Yes.
So
yeah, I'll just dive right on into this. So
Yes.
the first logged strike was in the scalp. It was 2 inches in length and 1/2 inch in width.
Yep.
And then the second logged attack was exactly on top of the skull, 1 inch long, penetrating into but not through the skull. 3 was parallel to number 2, 1.5 inches long and penetrating through, I'm assuming, the skull. Let me flip the page here. The skull.
And now this is what Abby Borden's head looked like from the rear.
Sure.
That's a rear shot.
Alrighty. Number 4 was 2.25 inches long above the occiput.
Oh, hold on a second.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, that was above the eyelid, optical,
Yes.
Okay.
And it was 1.5 inches long.
right?
5 was parallel to number 4
Yeah.
and 1.5 inch long. I'm sorry. 6 was just above parallel to number 5 and 1.25 inches long on top of the skull and traverse fracture into 2 lengths. 7 was 2 inches long and 2 inches behind the ear hole, crushing and carrying bone into the brain.
Yep.
Sounds like a killing blow.
Yeah.
All of the wounds on the head following number 7 through incised, crushed through into the brain. 8 was 2.5 inches long. 9 was 2 3/4 inches long. 10 was 1 3/4. 11 was 1/2. 12 was 2 1/4. 13 was 1 3/4. 14 was 2 1/2. 15 reached from the middle line of the head towards the ear, 5 inches in length. 16 was 1 inch long, 17 was 1/2 inch long, 18 was 3.5 inches long. And it sounds like that's it, I guess.
Yes, and this is what the front of Abby's face looked like. Now, many of those wounds were not caused by being struck. Some of those wounds are when she fell forward,
Sure.
landing on the front of her face on the hard floor.
Are those flesh wounds from
Yes.
scraping along?
Not scraping, but impact with the floor.
Okay.
So this one on the nose, the bridge of the nose, and the 2 above the eyelid were not caused by any kind of an implement.
Sure.
These 2 over here, these 2 here, are continuation of what you see on this side.
Alrighty.
So those were caused from the being struck from face on.
Sure. I can display those if you'd like.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what might be more impressive is this is what Abby's skull looked like.
Horrible. Just tragic.
Very, very similar to
Andrew.
Andrew's wounds, except on the opposite side
Sure.
of the skull. And this will give you a different perspective of it. But they're brutal wounds. If you put those in the
I'll put those in the actual file itself.
and they'll look they're much. There's not as much graininess as I sent them to you in the file.
Sure.
So we've gone through the autopsy. They removed the heads. They boiled the heads. They removed all of the tissue, etc., and that's what it looked like. Now, those were introduced in court. The Boston Globe said that when Lizzie saw them introduced, she fainted. That's not true. Lizzie was not in the room when these exhibits were taken out of a bag.
Right.
It wasn't a Stop and Shop bag, and it didn't have solo cups in it. Oh no, sorry.
Oh, no, we're going to talk about Karen Reed case
That's
right now.
another case.
Karen
Sorry.
Reed case. Every case seems to have their problems. We've done fantastic episodes on the Karen Reed trial. We've done. This is our 3rd episode on the Lizzie Borden case. We had one of my favorite episodes to film, and it was an honor, was the Black Dahlia.
Right.
My producer, my director, Caroline, her family is related to the Black Dahlia, so I was actually able to get a personal account of it, and I was able to get quotes from family members that actually knew Elizabeth Short. So that's an amazing episode to watch, and it was very.
And we talked about Chappaquiddick. And we
JFK.
talked about Lee Harvey Oswald case. So
Yep.
those are 2 different cases we talked about. Every single one of them had evidence problems.
Every single one of them had evidence problems. Yep. From the photographer, it seems like it's always the photographers. Photographers getting in on the Black Dahlia and messing up the crime scene, to the photographers getting involved with the Lizzie trial. You know, everything.
Yeah.
It's always
Now, this
something.
photographer was a commercial photographer. You see reports that he was a police photographer. He was not a police photographer. He was just a regular, everyday photographer who took portraits.
And even like the news and stuff like that, like the news companies getting involved with the Lizzie case was a huge issue.
Well, interesting enough, have we got just a few more minutes to
Go
talk
for it.
about that?
Yeah, sure.
At the very end of what I gave you on the working notes today, there is an interesting side case. Everybody in this case, and also I sent you a picture of the proposed weapon. That's called a butcher's axe.
Now, who owned this weapon?
That particular one is just something that I got online.
Okay.
And it did not give me it did not say it was used by Uncle John. However, Uncle John was a butcher.
He did possess a tool similar to
Right.
this.
And-
And this item, I'm going to show it on the video itself. I'm going to impose it. It does have the sharp blade with the I guess the dull backing.
Yeah,
for
a thicker.
Yep.
And they used that thicker edge, that heavier weighted edge, not to do an incision, but to do a contusion. And that's what these wounds are. This wound is a contusion wound.
Sure.
It is used to completely disable the victim.
It's kind of like a baseball bat, just boom.
Right.
Very
Blunt
similar.
force trauma.
Exactly.
And that would stop the person or animal cold.
Right.
And this type of tool here was used for fowl, chicken, duck, turkey. And it was used for smaller animals, pig, sheep, lamb, goat,
Right.
anything that would be butchered for use for meat would be used with a tool like that. A larger animal, they use something different with a longer pole for safety reasons,
Right.
because a larger animal could
Could fight back.
could
You mess up, it could hit you.
exactly.
You don't want to be dealing with
So this was used for smaller animals, and I believe in this case was used to butcher these two people, the two victims,
Sure.
Andrew Borden and Abby Borden. They weren't necessarily murdered as much as they were butchered.
Right.
And look at the diagrams that we did for this little segment by drawing in the red lines. There's a pattern to that.
Yeah, it's all
That's the parallel lines. That wasn't done by somebody flailing with a weapon. That was done methodically,
right.
because that's how you did that. And who knows how to do that? Well, certainly not a Sunday school teacher who's 32 years old and is only about 5'3" and 130 pounds, as compared to a butcher who is roughly 6 feet tall,
Has the technique down, has the experience down.
had the implement with them, because this guy could be called to do some butchering at any time. This isn't like the guy at your local supermarket who slices steak or something like that. This is somebody who renders an entire animal,
Sure.
kills the animal, and then cuts it up for useful pieces. And that, I believe that's exactly what happened in this case. So to close, as soon as this case came down, everybody started taking sides.
Right.
And it was pretty obvious to Lizzie that she needed to lawyer up
Right.
pretty quickly.
Right. And she had the available funds to do so.
Exactly. And so she lawyered up and got her local attorney who had been working on business for her and her father. And he advised her, maybe you should do a little bit of investigating yourself. So through his attorney Knowlton's office, they hired the Pinkerton Detective Agency, who at that time was a really formidable force in the United States. And we talked about this before. They were involved in the Homestead Steel Massacre, where strikers for Carnegie Steel were shot by Pinkerton detectives. Pinkerton almost had like his own group of individuals who carried weapons, almost like an army. And one of them was hired, in this case, by Lizzie Borden and by Emma Borden. And his name was Hanscom, Orrington Hanscom. And he was hired by the Bordens to investigate the crime,
Sure.
see what he could find out. Marshal Hilliard, who was the chief of police for Fall River, went bonkers when he heard this. The Bordens were hiring a Pinkerton. He didn't want any Pinkertons getting involved in his case.
Might make him look bad.
Right. Might find out something that...
He couldn't find out.
Right.
His guys couldn't figure out.
So what did he do?
What
He
did
hired his own detective, a guy by the name of McHenry from Providence, Rhode Island. Edwin McHenry Detective Agency. And he actually paid him. He and the mayor got together, hired this guy, And basically what this guy's job was is to watch the Pinkerton guy to see what he's doing.
Wow.
So the police department hired their own private detective, $108.50. Well, we can figure that out pretty quick.
Sure.
How much money that is. If Andrew Borden had $66
Yeah.
and it's worth over $2,000.
I'd say probably pushing $6,000 or so.
No, maybe $5,000.
Yeah.
So Mr. McHenry got $5,000 for doing this.
Right.
However, Mr. McHenry had a sordid past, and he said he had information about Lizzie Borden that she had privately confessed, and all this was untrue. And the newspaper guys were chasing McHenry around everywhere. They wanted to get his story. Not so much the Pinkerton detective. He kept his mouth shut.
Right.
And
right.
reported back to Lizzie's attorney what he had found and if he had found anything. McHenry gets tangled up with a guy for the Boston Globe by the name of Tricky, an interesting name. And it came to the McHenry-Tricky affair.
Wow.
Where McHenry went and told Tricky that Lizzie was pregnant. And instead of checking sources, the Boston Globe printed it. Not a good thing to do.
No.
Today, that would get you sued plenty.
Oh, yeah. Defamation.
Not so much back then, but they had to retract it. They had to apologize. Tricky was fired.
Oh, I'm sure.
And McHenry went back to Providence with $500 for the story that he gave to the Boston Globe. So he made $106, $108 from the Fall River Police Department, and then he made another $500 from the Boston Globe for this story.
He did a pretty good job on this, Lizzie. He made his profit, yeah.
He went back to Providence in disgrace, but with quite a bit of cash in his pocket.
I'm sure, yeah.
So that's sort of an interesting sideline that maybe people haven't heard that story about the McHenry-Tricky affair. But so this has been interesting today.
Absolutely.
To go through all of these and to see the damage and to do this on the 133rd anniversary. What time is it right now? It's headed towards 1 o'clock. So at 133 years ago today, at about this time, the police had decided who was a possible suspect.
Right, yeah.
Even though they had no evidence, and one of the reasons they thought that Lizzie was a possible suspect is that one of the detectives asked her, "Would you rather I come back tomorrow and talk to you?" And she said, "Oh, no, I'll answer any questions that you have." They thought that was suspicious.
Oh, I'm sure.
Where her two parent and step-parent had been slain, and she was willing to talk to them. They said, "Are there any hatchets in the house?" And she said yes, and she told Bridget Sullivan to go down cellar and show them where the hatchets were. And they found hatchets, one which had a broken handle, had about 2 inches left hanging out of the metal part of the hatchet. And it was like a shingle hatchet. Shingle hatchet has like a hammerhead on one end and a blade on the other end. And they sent that into Boston. It looked to them like it may have had blood on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it probably fit the narrative of the blunt force trauma on one side and then the slicing on the other. It depends on how sharp it was. Was it sharp? Did it have any evidence
had
on
some
it?
hair on it. So they sent that into Harvard, same place where they sent the stomachs.
Right.
And it came back. Professor Wood said those are bovine cow hair.
Yeah. Okay.
Not human hair. And what at first appeared to be blood was actually rust. And that kind of threw that hatchet theory out the window.
Right.
even though they used that. Now as I told you, these two pictures, these two skulls were shown in actuality at the trial.
Right.
Lizzie was in an adjoining room when they were shown. The photographs that we showed, like this one here, were presented just like this to the jury.
Yeah.
They were circulated amongst the jury members and passed amongst each other so they could see what the damage was. So those particular pictures were used and kept as evidence. After the trial, after she was acquitted, the heads were reportedly buried separately at Oak Grove Cemetery, at or near where the caskets of Mr. and Mrs. Borden were buried. So the skulls were not interred into the actual caskets. They were just buried separately, probably in boxes.
Right.
There's been all kinds of theory about where and
that's crazy.
And
but I think it's really, this is an interesting point to end the show with, is Lizzie's death and how she was buried. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, we talked about that.
Beforehand,
she was buried. In fact, Emma is buried next to Lizzie, and they died within a week of each other.
Right. Yeah, it was really soon.
One in New Hampshire and one in Fall River. And Lizzie is buried right at the foot of where Mr. Borden is buried.
Now, is that Victorian tradition, or was that something that she wanted? Because she had a lot of love for her father.
Yeah,
she was a daddy's girl.
Well, what was her middle name?
Right. Yeah, Andrew. Right. It was
Right.
Andrew. Yeah.
Lizzie Andrew Borden.
Yeah.
She legally changed her name after this case was over from Lizzie. That was her given name, Lizzie, and she changed it to Lizbeth.
Okay.
And her stone at Oak Grove Cemetery is marked Lizbeth.
Wow.
Because that's the name that she took. She wanted to ditch that. Lizzie Borden had an axe 40 waxed.
Right. I don't blame her.
No. And
especially if she's innocent, or especially if she's guilty too. I want to get rid of it completely.
And to her credit, she stayed in Fall River. Fall River was her town. And as we talked about it when we mentioned Lizzie before August 4th, Lizzie was a normal person who was involved in the community,
right.
Involved in the hospital, involved in the church. And she was totally involved in the community. And if any of the two sisters was a bit odd, it was Emma.
Right.
And that could be for many reasons. Losing her mother at an older age.
The sister, the late sister.
Losing first her sister, and then losing her mother.
Yeah.
And then as an adolescent, having another woman enter the house and become the stepmother, I think that may have given Emma the quiet, shy, reserved, reclusive personality that she seemed to develop. Lizzie, on the other hand, was outgoing.
She was well-traveled, cultured.
Went to Europe before this event happened, 2 years before, traveled to Europe between June and November. After this was over, she went to the Chicago World's Fair,
right?
Columbian Exposition. And we've talked about that because there's a very weird, interesting murder case.
H.H. Holmes?
Yes.
I do want to do an episode. Something I wanted to talk.
That's a creepy case.
Would you want to do an episode on that?
Yeah, we should do that.
I find...
I should start the research.
You should. So, guys, up next, I think we just figured out what's next. H.H. Holmes?
Sure, let's do that.
H.H. Holmes is next, guys. So if you guys are really liking this stuff, make sure to subscribe. That's a crazy...
That's creepier than these pictures that we're going to be introducing into this one.
And if you guys don't know what the H.H. Holmes mansion is, you guys got to check that out. It's wild.
Yes.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in to our podcast. Thank you for your support on the Lizzie Borden book. And remember, if you were interested in getting a copy over this next week, the copies will be signed today to commemorate the 133rd anniversary, and that will be right in the book, 133 years ago today with today's date. And all of them will be signed. If you want one that is personalized to somebody in particular, that is much easier done to do that on eBay, because there's a slot to put in what you want in your personalization.
All of the links will be down in the description below, and as a pinned comment, be sure to check out the book. Great Christmas gift, great birthday gift, and it's a fantastic read. You can also buy the official sponsor of the show, Coffee by Seth, coffeebyseth.com. Whole bunch of flavors. I just added tea to the site, so now you can buy tea there. There is a decaf blend as well, so be sure to pick up some brand new coffee. Give it a shot.
Thank you very much, Seth. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. Awesome.